Welcome back to Behind the Screen. I'm Dave, this is Jim, and that's Assassin Crystal. Join us today for a segment we call Dungeon Crawl. Hope you have fun. Let's make something cool.
This time we're going to actually be building well, it's not even an encounter. It's I don't even know. Would you call it an adventure? Because we're gonna go from pretty much we're gonna do dungeon, we're gonna build the dungeon, everything about the dungeon, the area, and then all these little things that lead up to it.
I think the phrase you're looking for is we're going to build a dungeon crawl.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I guess so.
Because we're not really fleshing out an entire world.
No.
And we're not fleshing out something to where you're having a homebrew campaign, but this is just going to be that little nugget of fun where if you just want to get together one night, you're low on players, and you say, you know what, I know of a source where they have a dungeon crawl already laid out. Let's give it a shot, which I really, really implore you to do because otherwise you're going to hurt my feelings.
Yeah. Alright, so we're going to be using the DMG, the Dungeon Master's Guide. I almost said Dungeon Master's Guild.
Yeah.
And
The Dumpster Master Guild.
Dumpster Master Guild.
The Dumpster Diver's Guide.
Yeah, essentially. And we may end up switching to some other books depending on what we roll, but mainly we're going to be using this.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the other books that we have readily available to us in case of things, if we really want to get something deep, we have Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and we also have Volo's Guide to Monsters, both of which don't necessarily fit what we're looking for, but they have a lot of roll charts in order to flesh out some of these bigger bads or traps or minions, just stuff like that to kind of add a little personality besides kick and door, kill monster, get loot. Which, if you're a fan of board games, kind of fits in the world of Munchkin. And we played that quite often, and it's very fun. I usually end up losing because everyone teams up on me.
We have to.
Asshole.
We have to.
Do you see how fervently he looked at me about that? And she just laughs because she knows very well she's not going to win on her own, so let's be friends and screw somebody else over. Why anyone else would ever want to betray me, but I seem to have a lot of knife holders in the back. That was scary.
Assassin Crystal, y'all.
If you haven't met AC yet,
Yeah.
you
If you hear us refer to AC, we're referring to Assassin Crystal over there.
Yep.
or armor class,
Or armor class, depending on what reference we're
or
using.
air conditioner, or absolutely crazy.
Let's just go through the list real quick.
Yeah, we can do this quite a bit.
Alright, so we'll hop back in, or not back into things, we'll hop right into things.
Yeah.
Back into the flow. And we're going to figure out the dungeon's location. It's a D100.
Got it. Pointy dice all the way.
Metal
Move my
dice
vape 'cause
coming
I'm gonna
through.
knock something over. This is a 15.
15 is going to be beneath a graveyard.
Ooh.
Already that starts out pretty cool. And if you're,
I need
traveling,
my gold's there.
if you don't start at the dungeon,
Jesus. Not to derail too much, but we just finished Curse of Strahd not too recently. It had its moments, but at the same time, she really caused a lot of problems because she misinterpreted a fortune. Where the fortune was
Sorry,
the
I
treasure
had to-
you seek is underneath the mountain of gold. She took to just grave digging.
Yeah,
Because the
graveyards.
gold was down where something might be dead. So anytime there was a grave, she was digging, and it led to a lot of hilarity on my end because it put them in a lot of peril. But at the same time, it was like, if there's something to dig, she's digging. And hours go by of her just digging and nothing.
It's like a compulsion. If there's not a grave around, she's going to make one. Just to dig it up.
Yeah, her own grave.
Her own grave.
Sorry.
So yeah, so it's below a graveyard. So right there, if you're not going to start your players out right at the dungeon, going through a graveyard is a great little entry into it.
Exactly, and I mean, that also pulls the strings of, your undead, your werewolves, your lycans, your vampires, zombies, ghouls, wits, ghost specters, that whole plethora of things. You don't necessarily need to fall into the old trope of there's orc stab, orc get loot, or
Goblins.
that kind of thing. They can be there, But right now it's looking really good, and it's also a great setting as a DM to try and bring in a lot of horror elements. So dimming the lights, getting some sounds, maybe a candle or some smells.
Lower the temperature of the room.
That's a big thing too. Make it cold.
And that's really people don't think about that. Dave brought it up to me because I plan on running a horror game soon, and he brought it up to me. Lower the temperature because that affects people in like really weird ways. People react to cold differently.
Oh, God,
and
yeah.
it's actually kind of like a scary thought of being
Yes,
cold.
being able to get it down lower and just having
You like it to be frozen.
some
Talk
like
about
It,
some
it
darker
doesn't even
lights.
have to be a lot.
No, just enough where somebody would notice.
You down it by about 5 degrees, maybe not even that much, and people will notice.
A big thing that I learned too personally from horror aspects, although I've only dealt in it a little bit randomly and just very on the fly, was forcing players to roll aggressively and not letting them have time to think. You have to make a roll and you're just on them. Make the roll, do it now, where the worst thing's going to happen, and then suddenly they throw out. And as that tension starts to build because dice are going down and rolls are happening, they're looking around, everyone's so focused on the story and what's going on and what these things are saying. You bump the table and the whole room gets scared.
That's happened.
Which
before.
has happened. Mainly Hurrian.
I loved it.
It was awesome.
It was great. So the next is it's labeled as exotic location, but this is more of what I'm interpreting it as is where is this graveyard? So it's a D1 or a D20. Sorry,
D20.
Yeah.
Shaka. 18.
18 on the back of a gargantuan living creature. So that's where this graveyard is, where this dungeon is located. I'm just like the turtle of the world kind of thing. Well, the turtle that the world is on its back.
World Turtle.
World turtle. Yeah. If you know what I'm talking about, come on now.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And just like the dungeon is the shell.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of cool.
That's crazy.
That's a cool concept to me. I mean, of course, do it however you want. It doesn't specify what living creature. It's just big enough, that a graveyard can fit on it and dungeons inside of it. So the next one is, who created the dungeon? The creator. It's a D20.
Yes. Oh, come on, Pine Monster.
Oh God.
14.
14. I even was just looking at it. Humans built this dungeon.
Ooh.
Really?
Yes. And then we have to roll on, let's see, the NPC alignment table and the NPC class table to determine who these humans were. So we're going to do alignment first, and it's going to be a D20.
They're going to be lawful good.
Probably.
Which also sparks a good evil campaign or a good evil dungeon crawl.
That's true.
9.
9 is lawful neutral.
Okay. For the greater good.
Essentially, if they think something's wrong, they'll help or whatever. I think it's a
Well,
little
they're
bit-
also going to be getting in the way if you're trying to disrupt them because they have a set path they're trying to, one goal they're trying to have. So they may not ruffle the feathers of everyone else, but what they need to do, whether it be sacrificing or kidnapping or whatever, they're going to do it.
yeah.
So if you get in the way of that, they're going to defend themselves. They're going to fight
It's
back.
structured neutrality. So next we're going to figure out what these lawful neutral humans were. So it's a D20 to figure out their class.
They were alpaca farmers.
Yep.
This is a 9 as well.
A 9 as well. They were paladins.
Oh.
Knights of the Round Table. And the next interesting thing is, because the next one we're going to be rolling is the dungeon's purpose, why it was created. And it's a D20. But there's some things on here that's just like, I wonder what these lawfully neutral paladins were doing down here.
BDSM. This is a 6.
6. It's a maze.
They're building a maze?
It's a maze dungeon.
So if you equate it to like the Minotaurs in the Labyrinth.
I mean, my first thought was AVP, Alien vs. Predator.
Okay.
The first movie.
Training
where they-
grounds.
Essentially, but like with the moving walls, you
Oh,
constantly
God.
have things
Bringing back
shifting.
older things, Maddie's Monk Trials.
I was
Yes.
just gonna say that. Where I
Monk
got
trials.
stuck.
Yes.
Couldn't-
Where you decided to
couldn't-
Kool-Aid Man your way through a bunch of walls and just get through a puzzle because God forbid you roll anything.
Well, he did it perfectly, and I thought I could, but obviously the Dragonborn didn't do very well.
thing was there's There's like 50 foot of water. So, how are you going to get across? And I was like, so there's 50 foot of water, right? I run
There was
across it.
ice everywhere.
That was after she did it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Because monks have this thing with the unarmed movement where at a certain level, they can run over water as long as it's within their speed. And I had a 50 speed because monks get extra speed. And it was 50 feet. I had 50 feet, so I was like, okay, well, I'll run across.
Yeah, but
Didn't
then I
plan
tried
it out.
following you. That didn't work.
I mean, him being monk and a rogue who can't roll critical fails on dexterity checks or acrobatics, they both scooted across very well.
Then the
Now,
Dragonborn.
The Dragonborn, having a Frostbrand sword, decided to say, I'm going to shove this in here. And made ice. Now, once she started going across these little bits of ice, because I wanted to make it, instead of freezing the entire thing, were little platforms that could shift and move. And as she's very big and very heavy, she slips. Now, the caveat to this big body of water was once you fell in and rippled the water and disturbed it, you'd be shocked. Needless to say, she was just a lightning rod. And every movement
Swim!
required her to get shocked. And she swam that 50 feet, but it took her a minute. She was really mad at me outside of game. Like I had done this to her on purpose. Don't roll badly or be 300 some odd pounds, if not more.
Whatever.
So this is a maze dungeon under a graveyard that is on the back of a living creature, a gigantic, gargantuan. The last thing that we're gonna roll for the dungeon, just the dungeon, is the history of the dungeon,
Sure.
and that's a D20. And all these things can be found in the DMG, the Dungeon Master's Guide, at chapter 5, which starts on page 99. If you ever want to use method we're using.
Nat 20.
Nat 20. This was the site of a great miracle.
Perfect.
Ooh.
I know, that is actually kind of really cool. It's a
Which would
maze.
which would also play really well into the lawful neutral
Paladins.
paladins. They
Yes.
performed something.
And maybe there's still remnants of something there.
Yeah.
And that's why the maze. Maybe they built it out.
Yes.
Which I believe is in Clash of the Titans. The map maker, the builder, whatever, of the gods, created I think it's the Minotaur's lair, but
Yes.
built it starting from the center out to make it impenetrable. So he didn't even remember the way. So that is the dungeon.
That's our framework for the dungeon as far as your location, where the location of the dungeon would be, why it was built, who built it, their race, their class, the purpose for it, and it's a little bit of history to it. Come back again to Behind the Screen in order to find out more about this in our next video.
Alright, till next time, y'all. Later.